Okay, welcome back to the Success, Money, and Marriage podcast. I'm Steve Siebold.
I'm Dawn Siebold.
And just remember to subscribe to the podcast every Wednesday in your mailbox, in your email box.
You can get it too.
You too can get an email link to the next podcast so you can listen to Dawn just go off on me, which she usually does.
Or Steve just rant.
I don't know. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a very interesting article. Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to frame this up by saying to some people this might be very controversial.
To a lot of people, this might be controversial.
To a lot of people, this says might be very controversial.
So keep an open mind.
Keep an open mind. But I would say to our very religious friends that this probably is not going to be an episode you want to tune into. You probably want to...
Stephen, as soon as you say that, they're going to want to tune into it.
But I think it's fair, though. You know, it's kind of like on TV when it says...
As soon as they... Yeah. No, it's like when you go to, like Publix and you go to pay for groceries and it says, do not remove your card. What's the first thing you want to do?
Remove the card.
It's the same thing.
It's like, do not remove. That says, remove the card. Take it out. What are you doing? Put it back in your wallet.
It's the same thing.
No, I think what it is the same as is when you watch TV and it says graphic images, warning, graphic images are about to be displayed. No children, no people that are sensitive, whatever. I think that's what I'm trying to do here. Just saying, I think mostly if people are consider themselves very religious, they're going to be offended by the show. They could be, right?
Right.
So we don't want to offend anybody. We have a lot of religious friends. Not our intention. But it is an interesting article because it was in Vogue magazine, and all of a sudden it just kind of caught April 2022. So whenever you're watching or listening to this is April 2022. This came out. It's really gone viral all over. And basically, the article is called "The More, the Merrier." The more, the merrier. And it's about how couples are in pretty big numbers are choosing to be married couples or couples that are just living together, non-monogamous. Mm-hmm. And so this article is pretty well researched. You might want to look it up. Vogue, if you're interested, Vogue magazine. Our religious friends just dropped off the podcast right there. Yeah. Like, no, don't want to hear it. And I get it. That's no problem.
Right.
But if you are interested in it, The More the Merrier, it's called, and it's, I forget the author's name exactly, but it's in Vogue magazine, April 2022. You can Google it. It's a very big article. Anyway, so there's some things in here. We thought, we ran across this, and I sent it over to Dawn, and she thought, well, it might be a good
discussion.
Topic, good discussion. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, I don't think we should bring it up. Dawn's like, yes, you need to bring it up and wear your Robert Graham shirt.
We've already talked about your shirt on the podcast. So, I'm not going to go there again.
Not going to go there. All right. Okay. So I'll give you an example of one of the quotes in here. This is from some researchers at the Kinsey Institute, of course,
it's the Kinsey Institute.
Of course, it'd be Kinsey. Well, I mean, they have been very progressive for a long time. And it's pretty interesting stuff. They're saying that you could go, one of the quotes from Ann Moores, Dr. Ann Moores, she's assistant professor of psychology at Chapman University and a research fellow at the Kinsey Institute, of course, at Indiana University. And she says, you could go to the grocery store, close your eyes, point at someone, and as long as there's at least 5 people in that grocery store, one of them is probably engaged in non-monogamy.
Wow.
20%. And, obviously this is something that people probably don't talk about in U.S. culture. Now, and of course, whenever the times we've worked in Europe, we had an office in Paris for years, and we worked in Europe, this is something that's very commonplace. But in the States, it's typically not where we tend to slant, skew more religious here, and that probably... I don't think it, honestly, I want to hear what you think about this, seriously, because what I think it's just as prevalent or more prevalent in the U.S. as it is in Europe. Mm-hmm. I think it's buried. Because people are afraid because it's a more religious society than it is in Europe. And it's very accepted in Europe, especially in France, right, as we should say, France. But I think it's here. I think it's probably 20% or more, maybe even 30%. But it's buried because it's not accepted in mainstream, although it's becoming more acceptable.
Well,
what's your take?
I totally agree. I think that there are a lot of people out there experimenting and putting that out on the plate, if you will, with being married for a long time and saying, okay, we don't want to get divorced, and what is it really? I mean, does it come down to it just being sex? Is it relationships with other? Because I think there's just different levels. When you say non-monogamy, obviously we all think sex,
right.
But I think that it could be other things as well. Like I know I've been watching some, since the article, I've been watching some TikTok people that are polyamory and
right.
And it's,
well, you need to say what polyamory is for people that don't know.
Well, multiple partners. I mean, they
Right.
are married or a couple, and then they have multiple sex partners.
Multiple loves. It's
Multiple
what
loves.
it is. Yeah. Right, yeah.
And they kind of kid around on it, but they do leave a serious note if you ever care to watch these on TikTok. But I think that in the United States, it's just so frowned upon that, I mean, even just moving, to North Georgia when, we lived half the year in Florida and half the year up here, as soon as I got here, everyone's asking me where my church home is, and super acceptable and to be Christian and not accepted if you're not a Christian or of a Jewish faith or, have a community that has some God or religion in it.
Try to be a Muslim in the southern states of the U.S. Tough,
it'd be very tough.
Very difficult.
Very tough.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if this...
Anything but Christianity.
Anything but Christianity. But I don't know if... I think that just because it's not that accepted, people can't talk about it. And I think that's unfortunate because I think these are conversations that we should be having. Now, having said that, the people that I've been watching on TikTok and the people who have been commenting are younger people. They're more educated than we ever were in our 20s. They can visit places on the internet that we never could visit.
Right.
And I think they're way more open-minded and more liberal when it comes to what they want in a relationship, what they want in a commitment, because, these are committed relationships. It's not, it's not just some, person out there sleeping with anybody. These are committed relationships that they want to be in. But unfortunately, this day and age, it's not accepted. And I do remember the first time that I went to Costa Rica and I saw several European men at this resort, 5-star resort, very expensive. And I just had never seen it before. They have breakfast with their mistress, who is half their age, and dinner with their wives. So at the same resort.
This sounds like the greatest resort I've ever heard of in my life. I mean, do you have a website? Is this affordable? Is this something I can go to tomorrow?
Well, and
does it come with it? Like it comes with the resort?
I acted.
Like they assign
I was
you?
shocked, but then like the next day we see this guy and his wife laying by the pool, and it's a private resort, and wife is on one side, and his girlfriend was on the other.
That's the greatest thing I've ever heard.
And they actually rent rooms. What's it called? It starts with a C.
I don't know. What's it called? What are you talking about?
No, you can have a single room, a double room, and then there's a room they call it where you can that we can have two. I mean, it's multiple rooms. For the same.
Like a suite.
It's a suite, but they have some name. Suite. They have some name for it. But anyway, so that was shocking to me, and I thought, wow,
nice. I'm just
but
saying.
it is funny how accepted it is in other countries.
Yeah.
And in the United States, no one can talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it just goes on in this article, just to quote a little bit more of this. This is from Dr. Zana, Varangelova. Dr. Zana Varangelova, I think I'm saying that right. She said more people are starting to question, the structure of their relationship. And she's a professor of human sexuality at New York University. And she's a researcher, apparently, on non-monogamy. And she says that there are a couple of cultural shifts that are really making monogamy, complete, strict, lifelong monogamy, a very difficult thing to pull off. Mm-hmm. It's pretty interesting. It's a really well-researched article. Again, this would offend some people, and other people, might see it differently. But it's interesting.
It is interesting, and I think one of the saddest things that I have come across in the several years that I've had wonderful girlfriends is people getting divorced over affairs.
I found the same thing in the years that I've had several wonderful girlfriends. Just kidding.
No, I mean, seriously. I mean, so someone has an affair in the relationship. Is it really because they had sex with someone else, or is it because of the deceit and the lies? Because having sex with someone else is physical, and it may be hurtful if that's not something that you're accustomed to. But to actually get divorced and break up a family over an affair, of course, every situation is different. So I'm not judging anybody who has gotten divorced over that. But it really is heartbreaking to see a great couple. One of them has an affair that the other one can't get over. Right. And I really do question, was it the deceit and was it the dishonesty and the lying, or was it actually because that they had sex?
You know what I think it is? Women do what guys talk about this, or guys I know at least talk about this sometimes. It's not the sex for sure. I think it's women do not want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be the only person, the only woman that knows, and they're worried that other women in the neighborhood or their
everyone knows
church
but me.
or their
everyone knows but me.
I feel like an idiot.
I feel like an idiot.
I think that's bigger than anything else.
I do too.
Because I've talked to guys that have had affairs that have said that. I wrote a book called in 2012 called Sex, Politics, and Religion, How Delusional Thinking is Destroying America. And it's my worst-selling book. It's the hardest book I've ever had. I mean, I worked really hard on that book for 2 years. But one of the things we researched were some of the most controversial topics in America. And I really enjoyed it, but it was a lot of work. But one of them was marriage and how people are successful at staying married. And one of the most successful ways is people that were religious people that called, some of them call it having a God-centered marriage, where literally, in this case, they were Christians, the people I interviewed. And they said their whole centerpiece of their marriage, they get all their rules, all their different things from the Bible.
Right.
And I'll tell you, they were all seemed very happy. I mean, it wasn't like they sure seemed happy in the interview, and I'm sure they were. But then I interviewed people that were in polyamory, where they had multiple relationships or more than one relationship at least, and people that were different, doing swingers, people that did all kinds of different things, people that just did hookups. I mean, in this article and I'd encourage you guys, again, if this is not offensive to you, if you're still listening or watching, it's probably not. But of course, who knows? But I'd encourage you to read this article, even if you don't agree with it or anything. You might want to it's really well done. It's very interesting moving forward as society goes forward, and there's a movement, of course, toward non-religious. 30% of Americans now identify as non-religious. They call them the nuns. No religious affiliation. That's the fastest growing non-religious sect group, a religious group, if you want to call it that, in the country, and it's growing very, very fast.
Right.
And not that that's right or wrong, but of course it's completely personal. But as that group grows, and it certainly looks like it will, these kinds of ideas are going to be more prevalent.
Well, I do, but I also think, how do you bring this up in a relationship? Like,
who's
gonna start that? So I think
there's Trixie. She's great.
I think that might be, maybe set aside time if this is something that you're thinking about doing, or you might want to have that conversation with your partner and just feel them out and see how it is.
Shoulder pads, a helmet is a good idea. Mouth guard.
But seriously, don't be afraid, because I think that's that people think they have to cheat because my wife or my husband's never going to understand, or they're not going to get it. And most of the time, I would imagine, I've never cheated on you, so I would imagine
allegedly
that cheating probably wasn't worth it.
Allegedly.
Come on, I'm being serious. Like, the cheating wasn't worth it. Now all of a sudden you've lost your entire family because you cheated a couple of times with someone because you got hot in the moment and had a few drinks or whatever the situation is. You literally risked your entire family. So my point is that, to sum my part of this up, is to don't be afraid to have that conversation. If it's shut down, it's shut down. But I think the reason that, again, I think this is worth having a conversation about, just to see where your partner's at.
Well, I'm glad you said this, because you made that,
I said,
like,
get the 21-year-old. Get the 21-year-old.
No, I didn't say anything about that. I'm just saying I've got my shirt on. We got the bar right down the street. You're heading out tonight for some business event, so I'm kind of like ramping it up right now. I got some new shoes. I'm kind of...
You do. The shoes look good. The shoes look good.
And it and as you know, because we've danced together, obviously, for years, I'm kind of like John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. I'm kind of that... yeah, he's decent, but I'm a little more advanced than him. But, I'm kind of like...
Yep.
Yeah. So I
thought you were trying to find someone. I thought you were trying to find somebody.
Very funny.
I think he should wear that shirt and the shoes and go dance. Because
that's what I'm
for
thinking.
Sure land you.
So I
somebody
like a hall pass.
Yes, get the hall pass.
I need some time though. I can't have one day hall pass. That's a lot of pressure. That movie, it's like, really one day. Geez, good luck.
No, had a week. She had a week. He had a week.
Okay,
he had a week.
Okay. Well, just to kind of wrap this up, I think that again, I think there's it's a spectrum probably that again, if your religious beliefs say this is absolutely against my religious beliefs, well, then you just then this isn't even worth discussing or thinking about or anything like that. But if that isn't, if that's not a wholesale belief or set of rules or doctrines for you, then I think that you look at it and what I would say is, you marry someone or you live with someone, but let's say marry. Let's say, because you're locked in. You're kind of locked in. You're in a contract. It's obviously there's more to it than you can't just walk out the door. You have, you're together in under a contract technically. it's a lot to put on one person that you're going to be my best friend. In our case, a business, and probably everybody listening, the business partner. I don't know how I'm trying to say it in a nicer way, but like a sexual, partner, let's say, and everything else, confidant. I mean, it's a lot to put on one person. Mentor, mentee, friend, lover, all
everything.
That. I mean, that's a lot to put on one human being and say
for the rest of your life.
Run now. Go. Just run. Turn around and run and don't look back. Just keep running until you can't run anymore. But see, if you're married, then you got to go back. That's a problem. You got to go, oh, man, I got to go back now. And I got to run all the way back. I got to get an Uber to get back because I'm run so far. But I mean, but on a serious note, that is a big ask. And that's kind of what this article is saying. That is a very big ask. And in the past, I think that probably this was so taboo that it wasn't ever explored by scholars and schools and people that are actually out there that are kind of hiding this probably in a lot of ways. And we're not talking about people cheating. We're talking about people doing it honestly.
Right.
Cheating's a whole different thing, as you mentioned the first part of the show.
Right.
That's totally, we're not talking about that. They don't talk about that here. I mean, obviously deceit is not
but if it's honest and it's upfront and you're doing, it's healthy for both of you, I don't see there's a problem with that.
Well, it depends on your
as long as you're not hurting anyone.
Depends on your belief system.
Right.
Unless if you have some belief that says that's wrong.
Sure.
And then if you do, then it's wrong.
Right.
Then it's wrong, and then live your way. But otherwise, these ideas are coming. Anyway, bottom line is, I guess, it's worth reading unless it just totally offends you, then obviously forget it. But if it doesn't totally offend you, it is worth reading because it's well researched. There's some pretty bright people, pretty educated people that put this all together. And I think personally, we're going to see a lot more of this. I know because when I did the research for the book, I interviewed a lot of marriage counselors and psychologists who said, this will be going forward in the future because as religion diminishes in this country, you're getting more people that are looking at things saying, well, if we're not bound by these religious doctrines that, if you believe it, you believe it. But if you don't believe it, then we're not bound by these things. Maybe we ought to look at this through a common sense type of prism where we're saying, hey, does this really make sense that this one person has to be all things to me for 50 years or 40 years or 60, whatever it is? That is a big, big thing for one person to carry that load. And now, again, there's just something it's very interesting, don't you think?
I agree. And I think, again, just to have that conversation, if it's something that you've talked about or tiptoed around, don't tiptoe around it. Have a serious conversation, see where your partner lands, and go from there. And
if you're a guy, get a Robert Graham shirt. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just saying. Something to think about. It's an advertisement. Just something to think about. Okay. All right, guys. We appreciate you listening to the show, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully they'll come back.